September 3rd, 2009. It is 6:30. We do have a quorum, so thank you. Hope everybody's summers went well since it's going.
Yes.
First item on the agenda is quick announcement that the Wayne American Legion holding a barbecue for the next 3 Thursdays. Apparently, they've had it mostly all summer. 6:30 to 8:30, all are welcome. And Marta Costello is the new head of this organization, so you know it'll be run very well and smooth, and I'm sure he'll do a great job. So actually, after this, I am going to go over there. So, because I'm hungry.
Right.
The next
Nobody's
item,
not gonna be there.
and I won't get any food at home.
Right. Wait a
Next,
minute, excuse me, wait,
sure, go ahead.
where is the American Legion?
Right next to the, oh, I'm sorry. It's right next to the
I know
Land Rover,
that.
on Lancaster Avenue, right next
I'm
to the Land
thinking we
Rover.
should tell people where it is, not everybody knows everything.
That's a very good point.
Thank you.
Right next to the Land Rover on Lancaster Avenue in Wayne,
Thank you.
near CVS. And the Tomola Triangle, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. The next item is there is a vacancy. Rick Yulo accepted a permanent position of employment down in South Carolina, and he will be sorely missed. No doubt about that. So we'll have to go through the procedures of having someone fill that vacancy.
Put your head down.
That's right.
So I will check with Matt Bauman and go through the proper procedures. Al Murphy has strep throat tonight, so he won't be here for his report. Dottie said she was coming. She's historically usually late. I guess maybe with school starting and a little bit of traffic. So we'll just go into our committee reports, subcommittee reports.
She's here.
Where? What are you, bionic?
There.
Wow.
Oh, there she is.
Hi, Dottie. Just in time.
That question.
Never. We are into the subcommittee reports. Dottie, you're first. Just kidding, just kidding.
You're first.
The first is the Community Services and Facilities, which is me, and a quick update from our last meeting. On August 4th, I had a meeting with Bruce Wilson and Susan Shapiro from the Wayne Senior Center, George Strimmel and Tom Glim from the library, and Dave Roderick, president of the Wayne Fire Department. And the agenda on that was to follow up on, I had asked the 3 organizations to put together different questionnaires that I posed about their company and their entity, and they did that, and we have a good baseline of what is needed for all 3 of them, and obviously it's money and support and to keep moving forward in a bad economy and going from there. So what we did is we put our heads together and figure what we can do. A couple of the highlights from that meeting is some sort of publicity blast, either through Channel 21 and, say, the newspapers with the help of Sam Strike, and have 3 separate pieces of information that they could put together and pass out at whatever function they can have, even as far as the fall festival goes. Combining all 3 into some sort of piece of literature and promotional piece that gives awareness to everybody that may not know a lot of the typical things that you take for granted. It's almost like the Liberty Bell. People don't even know where it is. Same thing here. The nuances of the library, the senior center, and the firehouse are all very extremely important, and a lot of people just take them for granted. So an informational piece, as well as what can be done to help them out, is another function that we're looking at. Dave Roderick liked the idea. They had the Board of Commissioners meeting there, I think back in June, was it? At the firehouse, and he thought that was a very good thing with the backdrop and so forth. He would like to have maybe more functions like that, where they can offer the firehouse as some sort of backdrop to get people in that facility and see how they operate as well. So just bring some more awareness to that. And the other item we were talking about is, this all sounds very good and great, but with everybody meeting, trying to meet once a month with everything else, it's hard to get momentum to organize a really big marketing campaign, for lack of better words, to really get everything in order so we get a really good game plan and business plan of what we need to do, which each venue needs to get done, whether it's capital improvements or just financial support or more volunteers. And we were toying around with something like a community engagement committee that they would meet and help get things going on a day-to-day or weekly basis, with some guidance and direction to really get it going. Because with us three, the three groups, and myself, the implementation, 4 groups, it'd probably take 3 years just to get off first base. And
Find a
nobody-
day when we can all meet.
Yeah, right. Just to get this meeting on the 4th took about 15 emails and 3 weeks to do. So to really get anything coordinated will take a lot of time and effort. And with the loss of time and effort, we lose efficiency, and everything usually dies on the vine there. So that's one of the biggest things that we're going to toy with on our next meeting. And we are going to schedule a meeting soon and basically talk about that. So I don't know if anybody had any comments or suggestions about, I hate to say it, but another organization loosely fit. Nothing sanctioned, nothing like a 501c3 or anything, just a group of people that are interested and committed that might want to help the cause of these 3.
I hope they're going to put in their material the need for volunteers. I think all of those organizations need to have volunteers, have a need for volunteers. The senior center, the fire department, and the library. And so that may be a good thing to put in their material, I would hope. And also, our civic organization meets at the firehouse because back in the 1890s, we started the fire company.
Oh, really?
So we
Okay.
meet there once a month, yes.
Good.
It's a very lovely facility.
It is.
Mhm.
So that's really where we're headed with this, and I think the community organization type of group is a good idea because we'll never get anywhere,
Right.
not through lack of effort, just through time.
Steve, can I throw out an idea that your group might consider, something that I've been kicking around? Most of these community organizations have email distribution lists. I know on behalf of the Conservancy, we sponsor an educational event every month. The Historical Society has an educational event every month. It'd be nice to find a way that you can really have email blasts across the township about these events, many of which take place in the library. The library sponsors these.
Right.
So those 3 organizations really do share their email distribution list. But if these other organizations, any community organization that has an email list, they don't have to send notices around. I mean, it's their choice, and they don't have to give up their email list because it's proprietary information. But if we could distribute notices saying that the Conservancy is going to have a lecture on a certain topic, and it may be of interest to, say, the Garden Club, something of that nature, so that we can really start to get some information about, because some of these they're great lectures and they're not well attended because people just don't know about them.
Right.
I agree with you. That's a very good point, John. And we will take that and actually write that down. So, anybody have any other questions or comments regarding
No,
this section?
I think that's a good idea, John's.
Okay, thank you. Next one, historical and archaeological resources.
Well, my name is next to this, but I am going to defer to Patty Barker
Okay.
because our only historical effort has been in Garrett Hill. So take it away, Patty.
I'm Patty Barker, Chair of the Garrett Hill Coalition. As part of the Garrett Hill Master Plan that was adopted last July by the Board of Commissioners, one of the medium-term goals of the master plan was to consider the development of a historic district overlay for Garrett Hill. And it's something that we've talked about in the 2 years since the coalition was formed. So in the last couple of months, we actually have begun meeting a group of people, members of the implementation committee, members of the community, Beverly Barnes from HARB, and we've begun to explore that possibility of creating a historic district overlay. We are still very focused on passing the Garrett Hill zoning district ordinances, so the Garrett Hill Historic Designation Committee, as we're calling it, will not meet again until Wednesday, October 28th at Radnor United Methodist Church at 7:30 in the evening. So once our Garrett Hill zoning district ordinances are passed, we will then focus a little bit more on the idea of figuring out whether we can create a historic overlay district in Garrett Hill. So that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty.
Cheryl, a question for either one of you. What is the significance of being in a historic overlay district?
Well, it used to be just if you were on the National Register, it was just an honor. But since then, we have established within the township the Historic and Architectural Review Board. And that will probably, if you become an historic district, will also cover that area. So there are rules within it about, and guidelines that protect the rhythm and the scale of the community as it exists now. So that, you know, in some ways, from John's idea of slowing down tear downs, it's a way of keeping the fabric and the scale that is very much a part of the charm of Garrett Hill.
Yeah, and I just wanted to state that all of our meetings are open to the public, so anybody who's watching and anybody on the IC, anybody else who'd like to attend, always looking for more people to get involved. So Wednesday, October 28th at 7:30 at Radnor United Methodist Church. Thanks.
Thanks, Patty. I know that I had gotten almost a personal tour of the from Roberta Winters and Sarah and everybody else, and that was great. That was a lot of fun, and just like everything else, you walk by or drive by a lot of things that if you take the time to walk it and have somebody explain it to you, see how the fabric of that whole community came about and where it might be headed. So that was really neat. Thanks for that. Anything else? Okay, thanks, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
Next item, are we moving that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. D is housing, demographics, and socioeconomics, which was Rick Yulo's, and we're going to have to obviously put that on hold and find somebody. I hope whoever takes Rick's position would be willing to take over this item in the subcommittee, because it is important, and Rick had done, he did a great job actually of putting that on the map, and he did some great work, so hopefully we can follow up with that one.
Right.
Business and Economic Development, Al Murphy, who has a strep throat. He did not send a report in, and that's quite all right. We understand everybody's sick. Next one is Transportation and Circulation, which is back to Cheryl.
Okay. I know the last time we were televised, I mentioned that I was going to attend the Safe Routes to School Academy, Technical Assistance Provider Training. And I went there in June. And it's sponsored by PennDOT, the Department of Transportation, Penn State Hershey Children's Center, and for their Nutrition and Activity Promotion Program. This is to get kids to out there and walking and being active. The Pannoni Engineering was the leader of the training. And after going there, I really enjoyed it, of course, because I love to walk, so of course it was way fun for me. I contacted Chief John Ruddy, Police Chief John Ruddy, and he was very supportive of this program. So and as was his Sergeant George Smith, and the three of us, I first met with John, then I met with Sergeant Smith and John, and then we decided you have to pull the schools in. It's only for grades K through 8. But another community where the training was held in North Wales had much the same situation that we have at our middle school, of a Catholic school and a public school in close proximity to each other. And they received over $1 million in funds to make safer streets to school. And my eyes lit up, and I thought that we could certainly use that. So we are now working with the school district. We've since met with Leo Burnaby and another member of his staff whose name I'm blanking on. And we're going to meet again this month and apply for these grants. They have to be applied for by the 16th of October. And it has to do with, they call it these 5 I's, to educate people about both pedestrian rights and what driving again, because a lot of us learned how to drive a long time ago and maybe have gotten a little sloppy in our behavior, and encourage people to walk, enforce things so that people don't break the laws, and to evaluate what is out there, sidewalks, crossings, patterns, and then to engineer any kind of solutions. And that's where all of this money will go into. I don't know whether any of you have noticed, but they have new crosswalks at the middle school that are color-coded, they're kind of like brick-colored. And at first I was so alarmed because I thought you can't really see them, but they came back and did exactly what the state tells them to do, which is to put white bands on the side that make them more noticeable. Those kind of things can exist all over the place. And the idea is to look for barriers to students walking to school. So that's what we're going to be trying to work on, and we're going to have money to work with, hopefully, to get a lot of these things engineered. I noticed that a number of crosswalks in the downtown are getting cross lights, which they had, for pedestrians. So that should facilitate it also. And we'll see whether we can move it on to other schools within the township, because I think it would be nice to be able to walk to Ifin or to Wayne or Radnor Elementary School as well. So we shall see. But so we're starting here, and I'm excited about it. That's my story.
Thank you. Well, tell me about the grants. What's the?
The grant is to from the it's called Safety Lou. It's an acronym for something, and from the federal government. Do you know what the acronym is for? No, it's a bundle of names. At any rate, the grant comes from them, and it's all about facilitating. The township would and the school district would apply together for this. And
Are they both on board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
great.
the Chief Ruddy is definitely on board, as is Leo Burnaby, and we've had discussions about what we could do with this money and if we should get it.
Mhm.
And when I spoke to the people who were running the workshop, they were very enthused about us because of our situation of the two schools right near each other in an urban setting and a relatively dense area where children could walk to school. So it'd be wonderful to see it happen here.
And that has to be in by October 16th.
Uh-huh.
That
right.
will happen?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. Anything for Cheryl?
I was just going to ask, is there a parent education part of it? Because I would imagine it's going to be important to encourage the parents to embrace the program.
Right, that's a perfect question, Robin. One of the things that we've been talking about is that what the township notices is a lot of parents, well, first of all, we all notice that the school bus is right around empty. Yes. And that a lot of parents drive their children to school. And one of the things that they are looking at this Penn State Children's Center at Hershey is what makes parents drive their children to school? What is is it to, and we need to get to the bottom of that also to be able to ease off of that situation so we don't have so many parents who feel it's necessary to drive your children to school. And also, we have had in the past, children used to be able to walk from West Wayne to the middle school, and then they stopped doing that, whereas there's a perfect walk light there. And if you're talking about, and the students that are going to be crossing there are going to be of an age where they could cross with and it's an all-traffic stop crosswalk at West Wayne and Conestoga too. So we're hoping to be able to educate parents that it is safe. One of the major fears apparently is that people think their children are going to be abducted. My mother never worried about that.
And
But
darn, it
anyway.
didn't happen, did it?
I was hoping to be taken by some rich children, rich people in need of a child. No, so that's my story for that.
Well, that's good.
I think it'll be, the education is going to be a major part of it. Reminding people just where to stop. To be mindful that a pedestrian may be crossing. If you notice, when people go all the way around the corner before they stop, and it becomes very difficult for someone who's walking, they kind of have to stop in the middle of the street, which leaves them in peril. So this will be a re-education process that we'd use the scroll, etc., to just have little, lesson of the week or whatever on there about driving. We'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Mhm, sure.
Next item, open space and recreation. Mr. John Fisher.
If you don't mind, I'm going to give my report down here in the well. We are in the preliminary stages of evaluating the possibility of extending the Radnor Trail across Radnor Chester Road into Martha Brown's Woods. The trail currently ends here, and we are looking at possibilities of extending the trail perhaps down as far as Ithan Village. And there is a deer tunnel here, which would give us a possibility of taking the trail underneath the Blue Route. The township asked Bob Thomas of Camel Thomas to present a proposal about doing the engineering for this work. And Bob did present that proposal. And at the July meeting of the commissioners, Bob and I made a presentation about the proposal. Given the township's current financial condition, the commissioners were not prepared to hire Bob to start doing all the engineering drawings, but they did authorize us to reach out to PennDOT and try to set up a meeting with PennDOT as a preliminary step. Now, PennDOT is critical for 3 reasons. First of all, if you would either over or under Radnor Chester Road, you would need to get PennDOT approval. Second, PennDOT owns the right-of-way, and they own this area along the Blue Route, so we would have to get an easement or a license or some kind of a lease from PennDOT to extend the trail. And the third reason is PennDOT owns this parcel right here, which is next to the Leeming track. If we did extend the trail and elected to use the Leeming track for parking, there is no direct access from the Leeming track to the trail, so we would have to cut through the parcel that PennDOT owns. So we need to get an easement for that purpose as well. We have been trying since the middle of July to set up a meeting with PennDOT, and we've had a little trouble getting people to return calls, but hopefully by the next time this august body meets, I will be able to report that we've had at least a preliminary meeting with PennDOT. One other piece of news in terms of improvements to the trail. I think everybody knows that the first 2 historic signs went up about a year ago. I'm pleased to report that the second 2 signs, which will be paid for by the Radnor Conservancy, are in design now and should be erected early next year. We'd still like to put up 8 more signs, so we are looking for funding at this at this point. The signs are fairly expensive because they are extremely well made and they're all customized for their particular settings, but I think they really do add character to the trail. So if anyone is interested in making a contribution, they should contact the Radnor Conservancy, which at this point is accepting those donations. That is the end of my report, Mr. Palantonio.
Thank you, John. Quick question. The parking at the Leeming track, is that a necessary?
Well, no, it gives you an option.
Okay.
It certainly would give us an option. It's not necessary. It's clearly not necessary now because there's no trail extension over there.
Right.
But it may be something that the township would consider. I realize in and out from the Leeming track on Lancaster Avenue is not the safest. I think you'd have to have exits at only right turn. But it's something that we want to consider. I mean, we're not otherwise using the Leeming track at this point, I think, for any purpose except
Right.
open space.
And that's another PennDOT conversation then.
Yeah. Well, no, the Leeming
no.
track, the township.
Yeah.
Yeah, access from the Leeming track to the trail would require PennDOT
Okay.
approval.
And the access from the Leeming track to Lancaster Avenue would need.
Well, that's
something
exactly
from
right.
PennDOT as well.
Now, one of the options that is probably down the road at some point is bridging over Lancaster Avenue, so we can get the trail extended here and go through the Leeming track and somehow the bridge over to the high school. That gives you, that's along with what Cheryl was just talking about in terms of safe access. This would give you a really great access to the high school without having to cross Lancaster Avenue.
And it's facilities, it's athletic facilities. The idea of having kids be able to ride their bicycle and go over and play tennis or do whatever is just a really nice thing to do. It would be wonderful. And this way it would connect so many of our parks. It would connect like Clover Lane to the high school, or, you know.
Oh, exactly,
It's so wonderful.
exactly.
I know. Speaking to the choir here.
John, can you just point out where the P&W line is on the east side of the Blue Route interchange there?
Okay. Now you're talking about my grand scheme.
Yeah.
You can't see it on this map, but the right-of-way just extends right across here. And on this map, if you get a little closer, I don't think you can, there's some thin black lines that show you where the right-of-way is. And unfortunately, I didn't bring the map that shows where.
Move it over to the, can you?
Well, no, I can, but it won't show on. See, it crosses here, crosses a blue route, and continues down here. The Route 100 line comes in over here and continues down to 69th Street. So my grand idea at some point, and this is hopefully will be accomplished in my lifetime, I'm confident that it will get done, is that at some point this will be all part of a bike trail that will take you down, will connect with the East Coast Greenway, will connect with the Schuylkill River Trail. It'll be a fantastic extension.
But in the short term, it also will connect to Garrett Hill.
Well, that would be a little easier to control because that's all within Radnor Township. But to be able to connect this to Garrett Hill would be fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of excess right-of-way on the R100 line there where it's split. And John and I have walked it and find it would be quite feasible.
So
Oh,
you-
yes.
You just need to come through that deer tunnel and then go up.
Then you would have to go up here. And if you go up here and pick up the right-of-way, where you would pick it up now is the Sovereign Bank building, right off at 320. I mean, that's where the 100 essentially comes into the old
Where
right-of-way.
it used to split right there, right.
And then, as Cheryl says, you really could go all the way down to Garrett Hill.
Yeah, okay.
John, the almost 1 mile in length, that's the white piece that you have?
1 mile down to Ithan Village. Now, if we can get, a trailhead down here, which is something we're also working on with some parking down here in the property that O'Neill owns now,
Okay, yeah. I
that
see.
would give you, tremendous access. This would probably be a walking trail because there's a steep incline coming down this way.
Red.
We'd have to go out and use Ithan Creek Road here because, again, the topography, and there's a house right here that really is right up against the sound barrier. So we would probably have to, but Ithan Creek Road is not heavily traveled, so to use that as a pedestrian pathway would not be difficult.
Okay. So your next step is with the PennDOT people?
Is with PennDOT, and then if they give us the green light, then we need to find the money to do the planning.
Sure.
We're waiting for the reauthorization of the transportation.
Well, that's true. We can go back in April, I guess. It's DCNR's, I think, deadline for next year's allocations for planning money.
Great, thank you, John. Any other questions, comments for John?
John, just a quick question. Does this plan also assume getting easements across some private properties? Would that have to happen as well?
Yes, we would have to get an easement here, depending on, we'd have to get an easement from the school district for Martha Brown's Woods.
Right.
And depending on exactly where we ran this trail, we would have to get easements from these two landowners, or you could do it within the PennDOT right-of-way. But we haven't really gotten into that. I mean, you
Yeah.
really have to do the engineering
I
to
know,
find out whether this is
preliminary.
feasible. But one of the really great advantages of this is to open up Martha Brown's Woods. I know some of us have toured this, but probably 98% of the people in the township have never been in Martha Brown's Woods, and it really is, in my opinion, the most beautiful piece of open space in the township that nobody knows about.
And it's a public land use,
Exactly.
and the public's not using it.
And the public is not using it, no. And it's a beautiful piece of ground.
Right.
Does that mean it's accessible now? You can just go in
Oh,
and
yeah,
out?
I went there yesterday.
You can just go in.
Yeah, well, at the end of Brown's Lane,
Right.
the Martha Brown's Woods.
This is
comes
Brown's
out to
Lane
the
right
end of
here.
Brown's Lane. And there's a path that takes you in there, and you can walk through there. It's muddy in spots and rough, but one way we walked was all the way over to the hill so that you could be eye level with the cairn, which was very
Okay.
interesting. And then we walked back on the old, and the old trail still has those rocks in it, that it has a real bed. So it's relatively easy to walk there, except for the fallen trees, and there are a gazillion fallen trees.
Oh, yeah, well, that's one of the things we have to clean up.
Right.
But this part of the trail would be fairly easy to construct because
Oh,
that's the
yes.
old railroad right-of-way, so
Once
it
you got underneath
exists.
of Radnor Chester Road, it seems like it would be so easy.
Oh, it would be.
But although it's public use, it's not, is it dangerous? I mean, I don't want to give the impression here everybody should go
Oh,
and take a walk out.
I don't think you'd want, I mean, it's very thorny. I brought clippers with me. It's very, very thorny. It's, you have to be someone who likes to walk in the woods a lot, because there are rocks everywhere, there's rubble everywhere. It's not a groomed spot to go for a walk. And, you know, you really can't, other than the beauty of it, it's not very fetching for someone to go for a hike there.
No, there are no trails, but it's not dangerous. So, I mean, this part down here, at the end of Brown's Lane is the low point. And there's a creek that cuts through the property, which is beautiful. And then everything else is a gradual incline to the top where you can look across the Blue Route.
Right. You can, you know, stepstone across the creek.
Yeah, you have to be careful crossing the creek, and
Yeah,
you have to
it's, you know,
cross the creek
usual-
at some point.
Yeah, it's the usual kind of
Sure.
wild space, you know,
Okay.
it's not exactly.
Thank you, John. Any other comments, questions for John? Okay,
Thank you, John.
thanks, John. Dottie, existing land use and land use plan.
Thank you. Okay. Where we are with this effort is taking a look at options to do something with West Lancaster Avenue, which was one of the recommendations on the in the comprehensive plan. And since we met the last time, I've had gotten some information, had some communications with Matt Bowman, and also with Andy, I'm blanking on Andy's last name, but the intern who's working with the township over the summer. And Andy has actually put together a few sketches, which I have to say I haven't seen yet. He just went back to school. And what I think we're doing at this point, I've been doing some analysis of the zoning in that area, and it's really interesting to me how haphazard the zoning is, and it really could stand to be cleaned up. I mean, you have a large number of split-zoned properties, which I didn't realize, so took a close look at this. But anyway, so we're still doing some preliminary analysis and trying to figure out, you know, what's the best way to go? Is it to rezone the whole area or to just clean up some of the zoning? And the idea is to have two things. First of all, some visuals to show this is, you know, kind of an idea of what this area could look like, and then some recommendations on how you might get there. Once I get through this kind of preliminary exploratory stage, I think I'd like to get a small committee on the board to take a look at this, and we can talk about, you know, sort of the next steps with it. But that's pretty much, it's still in a very exploratory stage, but we're, you know, gathering some good information, and hopefully within a short period of time we'll have a recommendation on a way to move forward.
Okay, thanks, Dottie.
I think that's great. It's certainly been neglected there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's, you know, it's an interesting area without, you know, mentioning particular properties. And there's some property owners who have really kind of taken upon themselves to improve the property, put in some nice streetscape. But it's not consistent, it's not uniform up and down that area.
When you said that you were going to do this, I walked over there.
Uh-huh.
It's just, I mean, because when you're right there, the traffic's so intense that you really can't see anything from a car.
Right.
So I walked by there, and there are places that are really lovely. They're nicely landscaped. The
Nice white sidewalks.
sidewalks are
Right.
safe and away from the edge of the road. And
that just
others where it's
ends,
just
where you're back onto the
your
road,
rubble,
right,
you know, like
right.
that. So it's just strange. This is good.
I just had a question. Would that be a good opportunity to have a conversation with Tredifrin?
Yes, yeah, and that's, sorry, I forgot to mention that, but that's a good point. I mean, this is where Radnor does back up with Tredifrin, and they've made some efforts on you know, their ends, but I do know some of the folks at Tredifrin, and I haven't done it yet, but I thought once we kind of get an idea of where we want to go in Radnor, I thought to contact them to see if there's a way to do some, you know, multi-municipal coordination in that area. That's a good question.
I'm waiting for my firsthand view of intermunicipal cooperation that
Yes.
we've had in place under the municipalities planning code for what, 5 years now?
Right, exactly. We
I
haven't done it yet.
seen it happen,
Yeah.
so it'd be nice to
Yeah.
see.
It
Yeah,
would be
no,
nice to
here,
see.
and you're right, because this is an area where there's certainly an opportunity to do
Right.
that.
Great.
Right.
Dottie, does Matt have Andy's drawing?
I believe he
Drawings?
does.
Okay.
Yes, I believe.
'Cause I remember there was a couple emails about trying to get together, just take a
Right.
glance, and,
Right.
okay. If you get them, let me know.
Okay.
I'd be interested in seeing them
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Dottie. Anything else for Dottie? John Simon, I apologize. I crossed off the wrong John when John Fisher went, but institutional, Mr. John Simon.
Thank you. Early in the summer, I met with Tony McGeorge, who is the president of Valley Forge, the first not only non-military, but the first outright businessman who has run the place. And I expected to spend 15, 20 minutes with him, and ended up over an hour and a half. I asked him every hard question that I think should have been asked, and just hit on a couple of the highlights. It is his expectation, and probably hope, which might be the better word, that in the next 5 years, they need a significant number of new buildings, which would replace some existing buildings that just are non-functional at this point in time. And probably most importantly, it's his goal to convert the property from a military academy primarily to a college primarily. That in the next 5 years expects there to be at least 60% of the population as college and not as military academy. They've had a very interesting shift in the foreign personnel who attend the military academy. For as long as I can remember, there were a great number of South Americans. There still are a few, but now they are getting the significant numbers from China and Korea. And they presently have anticipated for this fall 630 in their various programs. And at the point he is able to implement the change to primarily a college and to construct the infrastructure that's needed to house that, it could grow to a maximum of about 750, 775 absolute tops. And that's my update on Valley Forge. And I have nothing specific to add today on Villanova, but as a lot of you know, I have a pretty close relationship there, which has continued since Father Dobbin into Father Peter, and a few of his top people, and that's all that I care to offer this evening.
All right, that sounds good, John. A couple of questions about Valley Forge. Changing from the military to a regular college, that changes the dynamics altogether, because I know with the college now, the military college now, maybe it's college or whatever it is, it's lights out at 10. Everybody stays there, there's no cars on campus, et cetera, et cetera. So if that reverses or reverts back to a college or changes to a college, does that mean it's all day trippers, or are they still going to have the same? Are they going to have the same rules as a military college, or?
Those who would, the 40% more or less who would still be going to a military school, and 60% more or less would be going to college. And obviously the college age population would be older than the military academy age population. The former being 19, 20, 21 years old, and the others being, how old are their youngest there? Like 14?
Pretty, yeah, yeah.
14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So you would have, and it will be a gradual transformation from primarily military to primarily college. But they intend to keep the college, the military part, They have a designation from the state of Pennsylvania now that they are the state's military academy.
What does that mean?
That means they get funding from the state and from the
But
national
military
government.
academy,
Hmm?
so the portion that's military now still stays military as military academy.
Correct.
Whatever that other 60% would be a different,
That's correct. But
So it'd
with
be
that
almost be two
designation,
schools.
they will be able to get money from both the state and federal governments, which
Okay.
they've never been able to get before. And of course, raising money is a significant task for them.
did they have, because actually I know in the mail came, I think one of their newsletters, it was a nice, actually very nice booklet that came together. And he talked, there was a couple of articles about expansion, which kind of took me back on my heels a little bit. Do they have any plans? Did you see any plans unfurled for land development?
Only to the extent of tearing down buildings and replacing them, as opposed to.
But nothing about this like 100-bed dormitory or anything like that, or?
One of the
parking
buildings
garage?
they need is, one of the dormitories is just really not up to anybody's standards at this point in time. It needs to come down.
To be a four-year college?
Say again?
Four-year college, did they say? I'm asking you a lot of questions, which should be directed at that. I just want to know if it came up.
Because
in
they already have a
conversation.
junior college now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is a thought they'd
Yeah.
move to a four-year college?
No, I believe we're still talking junior college.
Okay.
There was an article in the Inquirer today that said they have 100 more students this year than they did last year.
Oh, really?
They're taking in 100 more than they did last year. So it shows that they're already expanding.
Yeah, they
Might
lost
as well.
a significant number last year when, in his first year of operation. There were parents who wanted something different than they were providing.
Well, as a neighbor there, I think that college as is a great institution.
Yes.
Mainly from a neighbor standpoint in that it's very benign. None of the kids have cars, there's lights
Yeah.
out, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the main things is when 2 or 3 or 4 of them walking down the street and you're cutting your grass or whatever, they actually look in your eye and say, "Good afternoon."
Right.
Sir.
So, yeah, so whenever a kid, a teenager or whatever, does that type of thing, and I almost think that if I said, "Hey, would you guys help me cut the grass?" they would say, "No problem."
Right, right.
So they're doing a good job there,
Yeah.
apparently. I hate to see it change drastically
I
for
don't
that
think it
reason.
will. Not
My own personal
drastically.
opinion, but, okay.
John, any plans as to what they'll do with that large open space that I guess is on the southern end of the district and really is in the first ward?
That's a big parking.
Yeah, the big parking lot now,
Yeah.
but there's also,
But didn't they tear
Is that-
down Sullivan Hall there?
Yeah, that was on
Yeah.
top of the hill.
but no plans yet for that open space?
There,
I think in that booklet, they showed a nice new building, and I think that was the location. I have to take a look at it again. I put it in my briefcase after I read it. I'd like to bring it out again, and, okay. Is there anything we need to do, or action's just an update?
No, he and I agreed to stay in touch and to include me in functions.
Was a former planning commission chair. I'm sure you know what to look for. Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Last but not least, Robin Mann,
Well,
which
thank
is
you,
the Environmental and Natural Resources Section.
I have to admit, I have not progressed with my assignment, which is to look at the floodplain conservation district. Just as a reminder, we want to look at how well that meshes with riparian buffer ordinance, and I will be working on it and have a progress report at our next meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Do you need help or anything, or just a matter of time?
Mainly time.
Okay. All right, that sounds fine. Could I ask each of you just to shoot me an email on what you want in the minutes? Because it was kind of difficult to make sure I got everything there. John, and Robin, yours is easy, but everybody else's. I would appreciate it. So, and actually, very first on this agenda should have been minutes from the last meeting back, when was that?
June?
Yeah, June 4th. I lost it on the computer. I have no idea where it is. because I did it almost virtually the next day on June 5th.
Right. Otherwise you forget things.
I forgot it. Of course, when I went to look for it, I have no idea what I put it under. I'll probably find it tomorrow, but I do apologize for that, and anybody who was looking for that. So I'd like to get away from that, and if I could get everybody's, I'll just put it in a package and make sure I send it out to everybody, just so somebody else would have it besides myself. Any other comments on any other of the committees' reports? Okay. Next, public comment. Anybody wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Harry Spees, Lansdowne Avenue and Lancaster Avenue. I was just inquiring about the West Wayne plan and new zoning, that there had been a public meeting, I believe, in early this year, and then another one at the library, or the one was at the library and one later on in March. And I don't think we've heard too much since then. In my opinion, at the first meeting of the year, there was some sentiment against, from several of the property owners, against changing the zoning. And I have interest in representing the owners at the northwest corner of Conestoga and West Wayne. Theirs is another one of those nasty split zones.
Correct.
Which Ms. Ives referred to earlier, and they would like to see that eliminated, the split zone.
Right, absolutely. Harry, I know Cheryl will be able to talk to you probably a little more in depth about that, but from what I understand, the implementation committee gave our recommendations to the West Wayne, it's not, what's the civic, actually, I might as well let
Wayne
you
Public
talk
Safety
it.
Association. Yeah, we kind of signed off on it in June and let them carry the ball from here. I know that they have been in touch with Matt Bauman, and I don't know where it's going from there. I think it's going to go, I think it has to go to the commissioners first, and the commissioners have to decide whether they'll pass it on to the plan, or will decide to pass it on to the planning commission, and then the planning commission will discuss it, and then whatever mutations fall out of that, it'll go back to the commissioners. So there'll be ample time for you folks to comment on it and make your own suggestions to the commissioners, who are the people who really have the power.
Well,
We can get a copy, yeah, I can get you a copy of what we recommended. We gave it to the public safety.
Yeah.
Now, if they changed it in any way before they presented it to Township, we don't know.
But
So we don't even know if there's any changes from what we did, but we could certainly give you what our recommendations were, based on our last meeting with that.
Right.
So if you want me to email it to you or whatever.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. I got to find that too. It's probably with my minutes of, no, I do know where that
Floating
is.
around together.
Harry, how can I get that in touch with you?
Do you want an email?
What's easiest for you?
H. Spees, S-P-I-E-S-S, at Davis Bennett.
Davis,
Davis, D-A-V-I-S, and Bennett is 2 N's and 2 T's,
E-N-E-T-T.com.
.com.
Okay. Might not be tomorrow, but I promise you I'll get it to you as
Okay.
soon as I can.
Thank
All
you.
right? Thank you very much, Harry.
thank you, Counselor.
Any other public comment?
I have a question for John Fisher. I'm Sarah Pilling from Garrett Hill. If Martha Brown's Woods is owned by the school district, how is it also PLU?
All schools are PLU.
All schools are PLU?
I think all school land is PLU.
All
Okay.
schools
It's just
all
public
schools
land
are, yeah,
use.
right.
Yep.
All right, just
We did that
curious.
after the 88 plan, made everything PLU.
But anything else, like Villanova Valley Forge, that's institutional.
Right, exactly.
That's zone
Right.
institutional.
But this
'cause it's not-
designated something that when, in 88, we decided to do it this way because it made, they used to be institutional, and this separated what was publicly owned land and what belonged to the institution. That made it clearer.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi, Rick Barker, 920 Lewis Lane. I'm the chair of the Garrett Trail Steering Committee. I once again want to thank this committee's gracious accommodation of the Garrett Hill Steering Committee. And just to announce that we have our Garrett Hill Zoning District public hearing scheduled for October 19th. I believe it's 7 p.m. here at the Township Building. Thank you again.
You're welcome, Rick. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I know your group, that was a long effort, and you guys really stayed together and did that very well, so It's a great example for everybody, so thank you, guys. Any other public comment? Okay. Old business? New business?
Move we adjourn.
A motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.